Hi everyone, Carter Krishnar here for From the Pavilion. We're simulcasting on Beyond the 90. We're brought to you each and every day by the Boca Raton Tribune, your closest neighbor in South Florida, BocaRatonTribune.com. The best cricket coverage and best soccer coverage, best hyper-local coverage in Southern Florida. Interesting day at the T20 World Cup. We're going to get to the Sri Lanka victory over Australia that puts Australia on the brink, really needing now some help from Ireland against Zimbabwe in a match tomorrow that's going to really determine the fate in that group. But first, let's focus on, let's note that Afghanistan made a little harder work of beating UAE than maybe felt they would. They won by 5 wickets with 4 balls remaining. But Afghanistan does ultimately get the job done. It's not going to help their run rate enough, it feels like, to necessarily get through that group, but we'll see. That's a win for Afghanistan and gets them going in this World Cup. So England beats Italy. Let's go through this real quickly because, again, my concerns about England that I've been articulating this entire tournament continued in this match against a plucky Italian side that were clearly very motivated for this match. So Will Jacks, who, by the way, bowled a disastrous over in Italy's innings where he gave up, I think, 18 runs. But he had 53, a half century off of 22 balls, partnering with Sam Curran, who didn't bowl particularly well either. England's bowling situation is something maybe we'll talk about before the Super 8s. They've advanced. But just, and it feels like they're not going into that stage with much momentum. We'll dissect their bowling situation in a future show. But Sam Curran partnership with Jacks, which was so effective in the Nepal match, really saved them against Nepal in that upset bid from Nepal. Same thing in this match at Eden Gardens from Italy. Really, that partnership saved England. Italy's counterattack, if you want to call it that, in their innings was heroic. Ben Minetti, 60 off of 25 balls, and he had 6 sixes. He was swinging his bat freely and with confidence. Justin Mosca and Grant Stewart also were quite good. And Sam Curran did pick up 2 wickets late. So when I said he didn't bowl particularly effectively, his earlier overs he didn't. Rashid didn't have a great match bowling either. Jofra Archer a little better, but I have to tell you, there is so much not to like right now, to be concerned about the way England is going about their business. Now, this is it. This is the side that won the tournament 2 editions ago. They got to the semifinals last time, although they were just crushed by India in that semifinal. Really embarrassed in that match. If they face India in this tournament, it'll be similar the way things are going. I'm not confident in even when certain guys are bowling in this team and how Harry Brook is setting up his field alignment. Right, there's a lot of confusion about that when England is bowling, and you're seeing some really poor bowling. Jamie Overton had 4 good overs in this match, but as I said, some disastrous bowling from some of the other English bowlers. And in terms of that opening partnership that I've been criticizing of Salt and Butler, Salt was a little better in this match, but Butler lost his wicket on the 4th ball he faced. The 4th delivery he faced, he lost his wicket. This is happening constantly with England in this tournament, where they're losing guys at the wrong times. Now they're getting through these matches, right? The Scotland match wasn't that comfortable either, quite frankly. But Nepal, they made hard work of. They made hard work of Italy, who's never qualified for a major tournament in this sport prior to this, and against the West Indies, a big rivalry match, they were obliterated. They were embarrassed. Not quite as badly as Pakistan was embarrassed by India, but West Indies aren't exactly India, right? The Windies are trying to find their feet again in this sport. So a lot of concerns about England, but they qualify for the next stage. They will be around for at least another week in this tournament. So Sri Lanka and Australia, this puts Australia on the brink. Pakele in Colombo goes for it was just a masterclass. So Nissanka goes for a century. Arguably the greatest T20 batting performance in Sri Lankan history, right? Sri Lanka's success through the years has come because they have great spin bowlers. And they've stayed competitive in matches because of their bowling. To see a Sri Lankan batter, I think he's the first century in this tournament. I'm pretty sure it's the first century in this tournament. And it is the first ever century scored against Australia at this T20 level. Australia's innings were disastrous because they raced out into the power play. Actually, the first 8 overs, they were unbeaten. They hadn't lost a wicket. They were over 100 runs. They were on a trajectory on a track in Colombo which has been conducive to scoring in this tournament, to get out to, and we're seeing this because it's the conditions in the subcontinent and in Sri Lanka this time of year at the Chepak and in Colombo, at both venues in Colombo, the scoring has been high. When you go to Mumbai, the scoring has not been quite as high. So that has to do with seasonal weather, seasonal conditions, monsoon, etc. So you're at 104 through 8 overs. Marsh and Head both look very good. And then that spin attack that traditionally Sri Lanka has been known for comes in. They do the job. And Australia loses 10 wickets in the next, lost all 10 wickets and scored, well, let's see, they had 104, so they would have scored 77 more runs after that and lost 10 wickets in the process. Just disastrous collapse. And Sri Lanka has qualified for the Super 8. Now Australia really needs a defeat from Zimbabwe. Now, we've talked about Australia not having Hazelwood or Cummins in this tournament. And my thinking was they would still be very strong. They weren't the favorites, right? Well, India's the overwhelming favorites coming into this tournament. But who can challenge India? By default, you always assume it's Australia. And now, after more than a week of this tournament, Australia may not even qualify. The only team that slowed India down is the United States, who did it with a combination of kind of medium pacers and spinners. So you look around, who could actually compete with India? And Sri Lanka comes to mind based on the way they've approached their matches so far. And then, of course, the Windies look very good. And I still think South Africa is in that conversation. However, they played well against New Zealand. I think South Africa also, I'm not saying any of these sides will beat India. It's really, as we said yesterday, India's now won 26 of their last 27 matches in major tournaments. I mean, and that one loss was that very flukish loss to Australia at the Vakande in Mumbai in the final of the one-day World Cup back in 2023, where the great Indian players, Kohli and Sharma, were okay, but they kind of had an off day. Bumrah's bowling wasn't as, I mean, it just wasn't, they had ripped through that tournament. Like they ripped through the tournament 2 years ago, and they're ripping through this tournament again. That doesn't mean they're unbeatable. So if someone's going to beat them, I think Sri Lanka is in that group of countries that could potentially challenge India. So real quickly for tomorrow, as I mentioned, we've got Zimbabwe. That's a very big match, Ireland, Zimbabwe, in terms of Australia's hopes. Nepal and Scotland, those two countries will look to close the tournament strongly. Nepal has not gotten a victory in this tournament as well as they played against England in the first match. That's at the Vakande in Mumbai. Nepali supporters have taken over Mumbai. I mean, there's these great scenes of them on Marine Drive and really have taken over the town and have been louder than Indian supporters. A lot of Indians just like good cricket. So a lot of Indian cricket fans just want to see good cricket. They're not as partisan as you might think. And then the other match is Canada and New Zealand at the Chepak. This is, I don't think this will be much of a match. I think New Zealand is going to rip them to pieces and try and get that net run rate up in case that comes into play. And against the Canada team that has been arguably the worst in the tournament, I think they have an opportunity to. So we'll be back tomorrow to preview South Africa, UAE, Namibia, Pakistan, which is a huge match for the United States. And if Namibia somehow beats Pakistan, the U.S. advances. And then India and Netherlands, which should be, another rout for India.